From the world of politics to the world of business, this is Balance of Power. Live from Washington, D.C.
From Bloomberg's Washington, D.C. studios to our TV and radio audiences worldwide, welcome to Balance of Power. Alongside Joe Matthew, I'm Kaylee Lyons.
Donald Trump has officially offered RFK Jr. the job of health secretary after making clear that J.P. Morgan's Jamie Dimon will not have a job in his next administration.
We'll bring you more on the president-elect's transition this hour, including a conversation with his former inaugural committee chair, Tom Barrack of Colony Capital.
And we'll discuss the prospects of Trump's more controversial nominees getting Senate confirmation. Republican Senator Shelley Moore Capito of West Virginia, a member of the incoming majority leadership team, will join us. Thanks for being with us today on the Thursday edition of Balance of Power here on Bloomberg TV and radio. The headlines have been flying. It's right around this time of day we seem to get names, Kaylee, not just RFK Jr., which has raised a lot of eyebrows here today in Washington, but Jay Clayton for the Southern District of New York. That's the former SEC chair. I didn't think we'd be hearing about that today either. Yeah, no, it wouldn't seem to be ranking highest on the priority list when you're trying to assemble a cabinet, but it is worth keeping in mind that he was a name that we thought might be in the running for a much bigger position of Treasury Secretary. Yes, so it is kind of process of elimination here. He gets this role. Unclear who will get that role. Reminding us, still no word on Treasury Secretary, still no word on Commerce Secretary. Those are two big blanks we have yet to fill in, but I think we have enough to talk about tonight. Yeah, we can probably begin with HHS. Joining us now for more are Bloomberg's Wendy Benjaminson and Mike Dorning. Welcome to you both. No shortage of news once again today. Wendy, perhaps it's not that surprising that RFK Jr. has found himself in the cabinet, as we kind of thought he might have a role in this administration, given how outspoken he was in his support for Donald Trump once he dropped his own presidential bid. But what power would this give him? And I will say, if confirmed. If confirmed, which is a very good point, Kelly. He has tremendous power. He has tremendous power over all Americans' day-to-day lives. I mean, there was talk that he might get an advisory role, something like Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy got, some sort of off-the-book, project to work on. Instead, he put him right at the heart of Americans' health and diet. I mean, he oversees the Centers for Disease Control. He oversees, dozens of the National Institutes of Health. He oversees dozens and dozens of agencies. And he has advocated to remove fluoride from our drinking water, which has been in our drinking water for 80 years. He has talked about making vaccines optional, which would make public schools a possibly germ, disease place, upsetting a lot of parents. And so who knows what he's going to do. I think this is in the line of Peter Hegseth, Tulsi Gabbard, and the others Matt Gaetz, how could I forget Matt Gaetz, who may face an uphill battle for confirmation. Well, it's hard to even follow up on that with a reasonable question here. But I guess the big one is about confirmations. You've covered a lot of these, Mike Dorning. To what extent will John Thune be obligated to usher these through, and will he have the votes? Well, whenever you're the president's party leader in the Senate, you're going to push for these nominees, but you're also an interlocutor with the White House, telling them how things are going. This will certainly test Republican senators' willingness to follow President Trump. They started out sort of wanting to follow him, as any party would right after their president's elected, and certainly President Trump demands a high degree of loyalty from Republican lawmakers, but particularly Matt Gaetz, who has challenges with ethics and allegations about sexual misconduct, and now with RFK Jr., that's going to be problematic for some senators. Well, we got reaction from one senator, Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina, about the Matt Gaetz nomination specifically. Let's take a listen to what he had to say.
The process I will follow here is what I've done with everybody. Elections have consequences. He chose Matt Gaetz. Matt will come before the committee, and he will be asked hard questions, and we'll see how he does.
What do you make of the pick?
I voted for a lot of people I didn't like.
So I guess the question is whether these votes will be taken with all of the available information that might not be readily available. Mike, he resigned from the House. The Ethics Report Committee, therefore, probably won't be formally issued. But can the senators still get their hands on at least what they uncovered?
They're asking the House for that, and not just the Democrats. Senator Durbin, made a formal request for the information from the House. But Senator Cornyn said he would hope that he would see that, even if it's not made public, if it would be made available to the committee members. There is usually, can't say for sure how this administration will handle it, but usually an FBI background check on any candidate that the committee would get to see. The Justice Department did investigate some of these allegations, so it shouldn't be too hard for the FBI to get the information. So likely in some fashion or other, the senators on the committees will get to see it. Obviously, with Matt Gaetz, he's not really beloved even by members of his own party in the House. It's possible the stuff could leak to the press. He doesn't have a lot of friends who are going to help him on the Ethics Committee necessarily.
Just to reiterate, for those who might not be up to speed on this, the Ethics Committee was set to vote tomorrow on releasing this. He just resigned last night. But he also just won his election. And there are questions about whether he shows up for the job a la George Costanza if he does not get confirmed as Attorney General. How's this going to go?
Well, that's right. He resigned from the current Congress. He was elected to the next Congress, Joe. That's an excellent point. So if he is not confirmed, he can take his seat back in the U.S. House under the new Congress, I believe. Mike, you may know more than I do.
The main thing is that we haven't seen his resignation letter. We don't know what exactly he said he resigned to. He could, in theory, have resigned both, but all we know is what we've heard from Speaker Johnson, that he's resigned. He's left the House.
But it does seem like a get-out-of-jail-free card from Donald Trump. So, you're under this investigation. You've been incredibly loyal to me, and now I'm appointing you to Attorney General of the United States, and now you don't have to face a House ethics probe.
So, obviously, a lot of questions remain here. One question that has been answered, though, is whether or not Jamie Dimon's going to get to serve a role in this administration. Donald Trump takes to Truth Social, "I respect Jamie Dimon of J.P. Morgan Chase greatly, but he will not be invited to be a part of the Trump administration. I thank Jamie for his outstanding service to our country." And lo and behold, our very own Lisa Abramowitz got to sit down with Jamie earlier today. This was his response.
First of all, I wish the president well, and thank you. That's a very nice note. But I just want to tell the president also, I haven't had a boss for 25 years. I'm not about ready to start.
So he might not want a boss, Wendy, but there's plenty of people who want a boss, specifically would like to have their boss appoint them Treasury Secretary. If it's not going to be Jamie Dimon, who now is on this list knowing it's not going to be Jay Clayton either? And why is it taking so long to figure it out?
Well, the why is a very good question because, usually Treasury Secretary is among the first, right after Chief of Staff and around Secretary of State. Donald Trump has been he talked about the economy all through the campaign, so you would think his economic team would be front and center. Instead, he went for border positions that would affect immigration and national security and defense, and not the economic team. So we're thinking it's going to be, every day we wake up and see emails from our colleagues saying it's going to be today, it's going to be today. So it could be any minute now. He is in a stream of appointments right now as we're on the show. And I think the leading candidates are now Scott Bessent, who's a hedge fund manager, and Howard Lutnick, who is co-chair of the transition, and a few other people are out there, and all of them have as good a chance as anyone. Or it could be like Matt Gaetz, someone totally out of left field.
Well, do you sense there's a method to this, or are we just announcing things as they're decided at Mar-a-Lago?
The first one was a very logical one to go with immigration right after the Chief of Staff, because that is one of the animating things in his campaign that really differentiates him, that really enthused his crowds. The next few seem to be more, his personal wishes. The Treasury Secretary might come in there later. Part of what he seems to be doing this week is just seizing all the attention away from John Thune, from Biden, and reasserting his dominance over the American conversation and doing it in a provocative way that tells people, you elected me to change Washington. Well, look, I'm going to really rile them and upset them. And this week has been all about coming out with stuff that really stirs the pot in Washington. So arguably, if you're hoping for a more conventional Treasury Secretary choice, you're kind of thinking you're lucky that he's waiting till later for that.
Maybe.
Well, we'll see how this goes. Obviously, we've got some time to figure this all out. And as Wendy says, we might learn one or two more while we're on the air this evening. Bloomberg's Wendy Benjaminson and Mike Dorning, we thank you, as always. Coming up, a conversation with the man behind the first Trump inaugural committee, Tom Barrack, founder of Colony Capital, will be with us in a special conversation next on Balance of Power on Bloomberg TV and radio. This is Balance of Power on Bloomberg TV and radio. Thanks for joining us. I'm Joe Matthew alongside Kayleigh Lines in Washington. President-elect Trump's selection of some controversial figures we've been discussing, like RFK Jr., Matt Gaetz, and Tulsi Gabbard for high-level administration posts, have generated many questions since their announcements, some of them still being asked as we now go to Bloomberg Businessweek editor-at-large Erik Schatzker in New York, joined by Tom Barrack, founder of Colony Capital, who was the head of Donald Trump's first inaugural committee. Erik?
Joe, thanks so much. Tom, it's great to have you here back at Bloomberg.
So good to be with you. It's back to the future a bit.
Tom, it's worth reminding everybody a little bit about your relationship with the president-elect. Joe just told us, and he's absolutely right, of course, that you were chairman of the inauguration back in 2016. You were, of course, then President Trump's biggest fundraiser at the time. You and he go back more than 40 years. It gives you unique insights into the man and, more importantly, what Trump 2.0 is going to be like. One of the things that people want to know most is how Trump 2.0 is going to be different from Trump 1.0. Tell us.
So, first of all, the insight into the man going back 40 years is I've learned one thing: trust his instincts. And I think what the country now has decided is that all the rhetoric, all the confusion, all the drama around how it may be presented, this is not only one of the greatest political athletes that we've ever seen, he's just one of the greatest athletes. But the question, I think, on what 2.0 is it's going to be hopeful, phenomenal, and much better, I think, than even the other side, in fear of what might be coming, will accept. Why? Because think about it, in 2016, we were together. We were having this conversation. You have a man who's one of the best builder, developers, financiers in the world, a reality talk show host for 13 years on The Apprentice, zero political experience, zero Washington experience, right? In those, if you had to go out of the 212 area code in those days, it was a flurry. Comes to Washington, putting a team together, right? We all thought we were putting the best team together. You had to find resources to do it. People were apprehensive of doing it. And just finding your way around D.C. was not...
So is the point that he's no longer a rookie in the job and he knows what he's doing?
Well, not only is he not a rookie, he did a great job. And if you think of what happened, we went from a Muslim ban to no ISIS. We go to a great economy in the world. We have no problems with Mexico at the time. Immigration is under control. Healthcare, security, housing, all of those things seem to be better. 4 years then of being attacked physically, legally, socially, and reflecting on all of the other things. So in that reflection of 4 years, got him ready to say, if I have the opportunity and the stewardship to have another 4 years and really create my legacy, I now know how to do it. And I know what the people are that I need, and I know the wiring of the plumbing in the system.
So let's talk for a moment about the instincts. So few of the president-elect's nominees for cabinet positions, not all, of course, but so few, I would say, have the resume traditionally needed to achieve high office. Why? Tom, help us understand, why is he choosing people with such limited experience and limited, on a relative basis, qualifications?
I don't know that limited qualifications. Right, qualifications.
On a relative basis, if you look at the resumes of the people who got those jobs in the last administration, in the first Trump administration, and administrations going back decades, they were, quote unquote, more qualified.
Well, more qualified of being in the system. What the American people just said to Donald Trump is, we believe you, we understand you, we are not supporting the system. It's not working for us. It's not working in housing. It's not working in Medicare. It's not working with our children. We can't say God in school. We don't want our boys to become girls or our girls to become boys. That's out of the system. So I disagree. The qualifications for the system, for the bureaucracy, right? When we talk about the deep state.
Or the establishment.
Yeah, and the establishment is not bad, right? These people are not bad. It's not corrupt. It's corroded. So to come in with a new frame of mind, with a new set of people who have integrity, have commitment, have dedication, who understand a different program, is what you need to move the cheese. You need to break the system. You need to move the cheese.
You need to break the system.
Absolutely.
I mean, and you're saying that, it's important to hear you say that, because you're not, I know this, we've known each other long enough, you're not a burn it down kind of a guy.
Absolutely.
Right? You found ways to succeed inside the system. Trump, in many ways, has succeeded in spite of the system. And now he kind of wants to burn it down. Is burning it down, in principle, is the risks that you take in burning it down, the risks that you take with the rule of law, the risks that you take with civil rights, the risks that you take with military competence, the risks that you take with financial markets, are they worth it? Are they worth the prize that potentially is there at the end of the day when you've burnt it down?
Absolutely, and he's not burning it down, and the price is freedom in America, right? I mean, that's what we're looking for, is the American dream to be reinstated. So if you look at how he's doing it, it's analog to digital, right? We have a federal government that is not corrupt. The Justice Department itself, we all talk about that as kind of the mainstay of the focus of these atrocities that have happened. Steve Bannon in jail. 27 of his associates indicted. What they've done to him, time in and time out, in my opinion, is not because Merrick Garland is corrupt or Lisa Monaco is corrupt or the civil servants, the 94 U.S. attorneys that are there. They're not corrupt. They're corroded. The system doesn't work. You have to change the system. And the only way you can change the system is from the bottom and from the top. And yes, he's going to do it. His appointments absolutely understand the program. Congress now is on side. But by the way, Congress is not so easy, right? I mean, if you're a senator in Congress, you don't want your fiefdoms to be totally taken away from you with someone else's decision. So his artfulness in dealing with Congress will be better. But these people are first-class choices. Tulsi Gabbard, Bobby Kennedy just now.
You make it sound so reasonable. But even some Republicans look at a nomination of a Matt Gaetz, say, and think to themselves, WTF, what is Trump doing? Is that a serious nomination, or is that sort of a joke or perhaps a maneuver of some sort?
Look, obviously, I can't speak for the president, but I can tell you it's not a joke. So what is he doing? He's disintermediating everything. We've lived in 10 years of disintermediation of everything that we've known, right? Every company that was AAA 10 years ago is almost non-existent today. So it's the same thing. A Matt Gaetz, his pick of a Matt Gaetz going into something like the Justice Department, right? When you think of the thousands of GS-12s, GS-11s, GS-10s, lawyers, FBI agents, it has to have some chilling effect. His qualifications...
Some chilling effect?
Well, he's not there yet. His qualifications will be vetted by the Senate. Do you want somebody out of the system that's been a critique of the system when the people in America are saying, this system's not working for us? None of it is working for us. So put somebody in who agrees the system isn't working. He can't move it individually.
Surely Matt Gaetz is not the only person who thinks the system isn't working. There are a lot of people to choose from.
Yes, there are. And Matt was a loyalist. He took on heavy-duty fire in the midst of a lot of controversial things. And the president knows what he's doing. I think we should just give him a chance. Trust his instincts. This man has been thinking about all of this for 4 years. He had 4 years of unbelievable experience. He's going to do the right thing for all of us. And it's not retribution. It's not divisiveness. In his mind, his legacy is the most important thing to him at the time. Promises made, promises kept along that road.
Promises made, promises kept. Tom, I think back to a conversation that you and I had in 2021. And it was for very unpleasant reasons for you, an untimely conversation, but it was timely in the sense that it gave you a chance to reflect on where you'd been with the president in his first term. And one thing you told me is that you didn't want to be part of a campaign built on divisiveness if President Trump wanted to take a second run at the White House. This was a campaign built on divisiveness. How did you get over that?
Well, the reason that I entered into it is I had been a subject of a 9-count indictment by the Eastern District.
Although you didn't know it at the time. You didn't know that was coming when we spoke. It was just before.
No, but I wasn't involved in the campaign at that time. So I had done my service for him, for the country. I was honored. I couldn't believe that, a Lebanese financial lawyer like myself could ever work for the President of the United States. And then it starts. And I look at that experience of saying, fine, if you fly at 40,000 feet, it's not I'm being targeted, but I'm not being targeted out of corruption. I'm being targeted because the political will of the other side is saying, we need to mobilize our political agenda. Now, fortunately, I had the resources to be capable of mounting a defense. So what my whole experience was is the system works, right? The system works. I had a 1.5-year experience. I had a 2-month trial. This judge and the jury in 1 day, a full acquittal. The average person doesn't do that. So in the Justice Department, and I'm getting to why Trump has gone through this in spades. Nobody knows what it does to your life. This man can absorb more pain than any human being I have ever seen. What it does to lives, what it's done to the lives of all the people around, Roger Stone, Paul Manafort, Steve Bannon, everybody, they've all been attacked. So for me coming back and saying, I was honored to be a part of it, I went through the system, and I admire the system. And I don't have anger, revenge, even at the people who brought those charges against me. I understand what they're doing. But it's got to be fixed. It has to end. It has to end not prosecuting Democrats, not prosecuting the existing prosecutors, not prosecuting the political people who were there before. We have to say, hey, time out. This isn't Venezuela. We need a new system.
Okay. Yes or no? That's all I'm going to ask. Should Donald Trump, as one of his first acts as president, pardon anybody who might otherwise be prosecuted for the same reasons on the Democratic side?
That's up to the president. It's
yes
way
or no?
It's way outside of.
All right, Tom. It's been wonderful having you here. Thank you so very much.
Thank
Great
you.
to see you, Tom Barrack, the founder of Colony Capital. Kaylee, Joe, back to you in Washington.
All right, Bloomberg Businessweek's Erik Schatzker, thank you so much. Sitting down with Tom Barrack, founder of Colony Capital. Interesting to hear from Tom Barrack, Joe, that he thinks everyone should trust Trump's instincts and that the appointment of Matt Gaetz or the nomination of him to be Attorney General is not a joke.
Take him at his word, I think, is what we just heard from Tom Barrack.
Yeah, of course, we're going to have much more conversation around these dynamics. We'll be joined shortly by our political panel. But we also have to talk about the new dynamics on Capitol Hill, because amidst all of this news around the transition, there were important leadership elections in both chambers yesterday.
Yeah, we're going to have one of the most powerful Republican senators with us next. Shelley Moore Capito of West Virginia is going to join us for an important conversation this day after leadership elections on Capitol Hill. We'll have a lot to talk about, Kaylee, from some of the appointments to the to-do list, not only in the next Congress, but in this lame duck session.
Yeah, we still have government funding we have to sort out before the end of the year. So we'll have more on that straight ahead on Balance of Power on Bloomberg TV and radio.
We are excited to reclaim the majority and to get to work with our colleagues in the House to enact President Trump's agenda.
On election night, America saw the remaking of the Republican Party for the better.
We all remember what it was like when President Trump was in office and we had Republicans in charge of the Senate. Starting on January 3rd, that's what we'll all be working to build again.
All of us could see the escalating costs of something so very basic to us, just the cost of food. We hear those voices, we hear them loud and clear, and those are the voices that we're going to respond to, along with President Trump, through the next several years.
That was the newly elected Republican Senate leadership team who will take control in January. And that includes Senator Shelley Moore Capito of West Virginia, the incoming chair of the Senate GOP Policy Committee. And she's joining us now live from Capitol Hill here on Bloomberg TV and radio. Senator, congratulations on the election. I do wonder, as you talked there about listening to the voices, to what extent this leadership team will be listening to the voice of the president-elect, soon to be president. How much daylight should we expect there to be between a Republican majority in the Senate and the White House?
Well, you know, I think we have to look at the results of the election. The president really won quite handily in a mandate. And I think with that, we gained so that we are at 53 Republican senators, and the House is going to be Republican as well. So this is an opportunity that is rarely afforded the party that gets elected. And so I think we will be tied very closely to what President Trump told people on the campaign trail that he was going to do. Fix the border, work on inflation and make sure that affordability is what every family can have, an energy policy that makes sense, an international leader that's strong and gives the right messages around the world. This is what we expect, and so far I think that's what the president intends to do.
You mentioned energy policy, Senator. Just to drill down a little bit more specifically, we watched shares of some automakers fall pretty sharply today after Reuters reported what many expected, that Donald Trump plans to eliminate the $7,500 consumer tax credit for EVs, electric vehicle purchases. We spoke with a colleague of yours from the other chamber, Republican Congressman Andy Barr of Kentucky, on the early edition of Balance of Power. Here's what he had to say about it.
If you talk to auto dealers across this country, certainly in Kentucky, the demand for EVs is simply not there. And clearly, through the Inflation Reduction Act, Congress was trying to put its finger on the scale and have the government incentivize the allocation of capital, incentivize the transition to electric vehicles when, frankly, market demand is not there. This kind of industrial policy is not a good way to promote American competitiveness.
Now, what are your thoughts on this, Senator? And you probably saw this coming as well. We saw shares of Tesla go down, Rivian down, Ford down. Does Donald Trump have the votes? And would you support that move to make it happen?
I would support it. I don't think that the federal government should be incentivizing a certain product, and certainly EVs is what the Biden administration has been incentivizing. But I would even go a step further. There's been a policy to drive us to electric vehicles, but at the same time, in the bipartisan infrastructure package, which I voted for, there was money there to help with the infrastructure part, the recharging and all of that, and the government has failed in terms of deploying that. So there's really no infrastructure, and certainly in my area of West Virginia, rural areas, to even have electric vehicles be successfully used in many, many households. And so you see the car company, automotive manufacturers, they've ceased making certain models because the demand is not there. You can't force this. Besides the fact they're much more expensive, and a lot of places in this country, like my state of West Virginia, it'd be pretty tough on a very cold day to drive through those mountains very far in an electric car.
Well, right now, Senator, of course, you're not home in West Virginia. You are in the Capitol, and there is still some work for you and your colleagues to do in this session of Congress. There's government funding that needs to be figured out by year end. We heard from Congressman Barr that he does not think the can should be kicked down the road anymore, that these actual appropriation bills need to cross the finish line so that there can be a clean, fresh start when the new Congress sits and President Trump takes office. Is that likely to happen?
Well, we're working towards that. I'm on the Appropriations Committee, and I'm the ranking member on the Health, Labor, and Education Subcommittee. So it's a massive spending bill. I really think it's in President Trump's best interests, and I hope he sees it this way, to sort of clear the deck for him so that his priorities and his spending in line with the House and the Senate can be exhibited in a appropriations bill for the next year. I think it would make it a lot simpler and a lot easier. It is a lot to cram in at the end of the year, but this lays really, honestly, I think, at the feet of Senator Chuck Schumer. We passed our bills in July out of committee in a bipartisan fashion, and he never put them on the floor. So if he had done that, we could have already worked through amendments and we could be further along in this process than we are. But I do believe we need to get it done by the end of the year. We also have a National Defense Authorization Bill, which sets our priorities in the defense space. We need to do that by the end of the year as well.
Another call for regular order, Senator. We hear you. You mentioned at the outset of the interview that it's time to follow the results of the election, and Donald Trump has been filling in the blanks fast and furiously over the past couple of days here in filling out a cabinet. It's going to be up to the Senate, of course, to provide the advice and consent on many of these names, including the likes of Matt Gaetz for Attorney General, including the likes of RFK Jr. For Health and Human Services. Will the Senate support these appointments?
Well, I think we're a long way from finding out the answer there. I do think that, by and large, the president has the authority and the prerogative, and in an election such as this, the will to move forward with his own appointees that he thinks will put into action the promises that he made during the election. He was very specific. He says he wants a DOJ that's not weaponized. He wants a DOJ that's fair to everybody. And I think he feels, and many of us do, that he has not been treated fairly by our own DOJ. So, he's put forward, I would say, somebody that he believes will make that right at the DOJ. But, we have a process here. We have to go through committee. It has to go through the Judiciary Committee. Yeah. And so we're a long way from really seeing how this whole thing will end up in the end. But I think we should give due diligence to every single one of the president's appointees, and we should do it quickly. We should have it in place so that when he starts on January the 20th, he has a good possibility of filling out his cabinet rather quickly. Now, he's giving us names now. We can begin the vetting process.
Well, and that vetting process is, of course, one of the checks and balances that is embedded into the U.S. democratic system, Senator. And I wonder if you have concern about the potential removal of those checks if instead we get a bunch of recess appointments. What is leadership's view on that request from Donald Trump?
I mean, my view, and I heard our new leader, John Thune, say this as well. Our mission is to fulfill our advise and consent role and do the confirmation process. So we can do it if we work, around the clock and burn the hours that it takes to get these nominees in front of the full Senate. We can fulfill in the regular order way of confirming the nominees, and that's what we intend to do. I think all of this talk about recess appointments is way premature. I don't believe that's the direction that we want to go, and I don't think President Trump will want to go that. He wants the confirmation of the Senate because we're going to be working together all throughout these next several years, and we need to make sure that we not that we respect each other's roles, but that we have the confirmation from each other that we're moving in the right direction.
A newsy conversation, Senator. Thank you so much for answering all of our questions. Republican Shelley Moore Capito of West Virginia, congrats again. That's the 4th ranking Republican in the U.S. Senate come January. Coming up on Balance of Power, our political panel will be with us for a look at some of the challenges facing the lame duck congressional session and the challenges facing the next Congress. It's a list, and we'll have it next on Balance of Power on Bloomberg TV and radio.
Donald Trump's Project 2025 and some of his initial nominations for cabinet posts reflect an unserious, non-policy-oriented approach. And that will really determine what Democrats are going to do. If Donald Trump is going to try to dismantle our democracy for his own personal retribution and personal gain, he will not find any cooperation from Democrats.
Democratic Congressman Dan Goldman of New York discussing earlier today whether or not Democrats will cooperate with the Republican majority in his chamber. That was on the early edition of Balance of Power today. As we assemble our political panel today, Sarah Chamberlain is back with us, President and CEO of the Republican Main Street Partnership and Republican strategist, alongside Democratic strategist Aisha Mills. Great to see you both. Sarah, we've been invoking your name frequently since the election. We've got a lot to catch up on here, but I do want to get to the point that I was discussing earlier with Congressman Goldman, the idea that Donald Trump has put forth a series of appointments and nominations for the cabinet and otherwise that have raised a lot of questions about his approach to government, the veracity of federal agencies here in Washington. How are these playing with you, whether it's Matt Gaetz or RFK Jr. or some of the others?
So most of them are okay. The Matt Gaetz one is a little bit questionable. You know, obviously he resigned.
Caused a lot of trouble for your conference.
It caused a lot of trouble. I'm not sure the Senate will really approve him when it's all said and done, but it blocked the ethics report from being coming out in 2 days. So I think there's a lot of situations that are going on. I would really be surprised to see Matt Gaetz actually confirmed.
Well, I guess we're going to have to wait and find out. Sarah, just quickly, though, he, of course, has now resigned from the House. That's one less Republican member. Elise Stefanik has been pulled out. Mike Waltz has been pulled out. It might be a very narrow majority once again. It's likely to be. So how problematic is losing 3 members?
It's a huge problem. I mean, we are down to the barest. If anybody's sick or out, then the Democrats could control in a day or two. So it's going to be interesting to see. The Republican Main Street Partnership did move, though, yesterday to change some of the rules. So we went from 1 ousting, being able to oust a speaker, to 9. So that was a huge change in rules because they are concerned actually about that. Like, we want to make sure that the margins being so close that the speaker doesn't get tossed again like Kevin did, a year and a half ago.
Well, we want to get into a lot of things, including funding deadlines coming forward. We should have Aisha weigh in on this. As the Democrat on our panel, Aisha, these names that we're hearing, take your pick, tell you what?
Well, it tells me that we are in real dire straits, which is what, we all preached before leading up to this election, that we're really in a place where democracy was on the line with the election and autocracy could absolutely take effect. And Donald Trump told us what he was going to do, and he's doing it. I mean, the fact that you have someone nominated for the Department of Justice who, essentially the nomination was a cop to get out of being able to be held accountable for these allegations against him, Matt Gaetz, that report will come out, of sex trafficking a minor. The fact that you have a Tulsi Gabbard who's been appointed to do national intelligence and has absolutely zero experience and probably couldn't even pass the qualifications for the security clearance that's required to do that job. To take a Fox News host and throw them in a position where they are now in charge of the largest fighting force, military force in the world is absolutely unserious. But what it is it's dangerous. And so when we look at these picks, it's not laughable. It's actually, for me, I'm very fearful because Donald Trump has said that his goal is ultimately to dismantle government. And by these picks, he's putting people in place who completely disavow the institutions that he is setting them up to, quote unquote, helm. And the last thing, example I'll give to that, Matt Gaetz has said that he wanted to abolish the Department of Justice, get rid of the FBI, and now he's going to ultimately lead it. You've got someone who doesn't believe in public health, essentially, now supposedly going to helm the Department of Health and Human Services. So I think that if there's any takeaway for the American people, is to believe Donald Trump. He's doing exactly what he said he would. He's going to round up immigrants and try to throw them out of the country, which will be a disaster, and ultimately try to dismantle government from the inside out. And we should all be very concerned about that.
Well, this is actually something that Bloomberg's Erik Schatzker spoke about with Tom Barrack, who chaired Trump's inaugural committee after his election in 2016, the first time around. And this is what he had to say when he was asked whether or not this is kind of a burn it down approach we are seeing from the president-elect. Let's listen.
The establishment is not bad, right? These people are not bad. It's not corrupt. It's corroded. So to come in with a new frame of mind, with a new set of people who have integrity, have commitment, have dedication, who understand a different program, is what you need to move the cheese. You need to break the system.
Obviously, the system and establishment does include a lot of Main Street members, I would guess, as well, Sarah. So what do you say in response to that?
Well, we have at least 3 members so far that have been picked for high level. Elise Stefanik, obviously going into the ambassador, UN ambassador, Mike Walsh. So we're really pleased. We've never had, in the first administration, he didn't pick Republican Main Street Partnership members. So we're excited. He can't pick too many more out of the House. I just really want to highlight that. But we're really pleased overall with his picks. Are there a couple of questionable ones? Absolutely. And our members are a little nervous about that. But again, that would become our Senate members that would actually have to deal with that.
Well, there's been a question of what his motivations are. Some say, no, take him seriously. He's got John Thune against the wall here, and he's given him a real loyalty test. Others think this is a strategic play. An opening of a negotiation. Okay, fine, you don't want Matt Gaetz. I've got somebody, waiting in the wings here. How is this working in your eyes?
I actually think it's the latter. I think that's exactly what he's doing. I think he's putting Matt Gaetz out there, trying to save him from the ethics story, all that, because Matt Gaetz does want to run for governor of Florida. And then he'll be like, okay, that didn't work. Here's the next one.
The next candidate will look like a hero.
Exactly. So no matter who it is, it's probably going to be a little bit better than Matt Gaetz. So it's a great strategy, actually.
Aisha, you buy that strategy?
Well, I don't buy the playing games with our government and these positions that are completely consequential to people's day-to-day lives. So the fact that we're talking about the federal government and the person who, by the way, is a convicted felon that is now going to lead it again, as if this is some reality TV show and a joke and a game, right, of like who's going to survive, is the problem. And that's the thing that gives me pause, because there are a lot of Republicans, frankly, who are very much committed to their public service, who have spent years and years in government and around government, who sure may be reform-minded and think that these agencies are not going in the direction that they would like them to go in, but certainly wouldn't go in and break it just for giggles and fun, right? And just trying to one-up someone. They actually would get in there and roll up their sleeves and try to figure out how to do better by the American people. The fact that we are not talking about that we're not talking about how any of these appointees or any of this strategy is actually to do better by Americans is the problem.
All right, Aisha and Sarah will be sticking with us as we look at the challenges facing this current Congress before we can even get to the next one. That's next on Balance of Power on Bloomberg TV and radio.
I don't think we should kick the can down the road. Let's finish the business. As I said before, the House has passed 70% of the appropriations bills. Let's finish our work and get the Senate to do its work, whether that's in one bill, 2 bills, 3 bills, 3 minibuses or what have you. We just need to get the job done so that we start with a clean slate in 2025.
Republican Congressman Andy Barr of Kentucky calling for regular order on the earlier edition of Balance of Power today, saying Congress should pass funding bills before the end of the year. Back with us now for more is Sarah Chamberlain of the Republican Main Street Partnership. So, Sarah, we're looking at a deadline of December 20th here, 21st, trying to do it before year end. Are we going to get all those appropriation bills through, or is that just asking for an omnibus?
It's asking for an omnibus.
Is that going to happen?
Yeah. I mean, Andy Barr is a member of the Republican Main Street Partnership, and that they're kind of decided that's probably what's going to happen. It would be great to get all the appropriations bills done, but it's probably not realistic. And then, of course, you've got government shutdown looming out there, too.
Well, yes. We have so much to look forward to. Democratic strategist on the panel, Aisha Mills. Your thoughts on this, Aisha, because we're talking to the lawmakers, and we have found 3 camps. Some want to extend through March. There's a camp, a pro-Trump camp, by the way, that says, no, put it straight through September. He'll have nothing but his own agenda to work on. Don't saddle him with a budget debate. But now today, as we just heard from Andy Barr, there is a new call for regular order, actually get it done by the end of the year. Which is most likely?
Well, what's unfortunate is that regular order has been an anomaly for, at this point, over a decade. So it would be great if Congress did its job and passed a budget and didn't just keep kicking the can down the road with continuing resolutions. I think that this would have to be wrapped up in an omnibus in order to get done. But we'll see. I mean, at the end of the day, now we're in an interesting situation where Donald Trump is really the standard bearer and the guy in charge. And so the question becomes, will he have the political will and inclination to move his members to actually get something done and to deliver for the American people as he promised? And I think that this is really a test. It's a first opportunity for that before he even takes the oath.
Well, can I go back to what Shelley Moore Capito said?
Yeah.
Okay. The Senate hasn't moved them either, and they're Democratic controlled. So they're backed up over there as well. So I don't think there's a chance of getting them through this Congress, though I know the members would like to. So the senators, the Democrats aren't willing to.
So what's the reality
either.
check? What are we going to say?
The reality is, and on probably the 18th or 19th of December, there's going to be a big bill, and it's going to come. But it's not just the Republicans in the House. The Democrats in the Senate have slowed this down as well.
There won't be a major outcry on the Freedom Caucus when this happens?
Probably not.
Or so what?
Probably not. There's fewer of the Freedom Caucus. They're a little bit quieter. I don't think so. I think they'll let this go through and regroup for next year.
Aisha, we have less than a minute left, but just quickly, could Chuck Schumer have handled this better?
Listen, the question becomes, will there ever be real bipartisan opportunity to move anything in the Senate? And I don't think that we're getting anywhere closer to that. I think that we continue to get further and further away from that. And that's unfortunate. So we can blame whoever's in charge at any point in time. The truth is that I'm not convinced that the Senate will ever work together to get anything moving.
Aisha Mills, Sarah Chamberlain, great conversation. Thank you for the analysis on a great panel tonight. Check out the Washington Edition newsletter if you want to follow up on all the stories we've been talking about, and a lot more likely tomorrow. Find it on the terminal and online.
And find us back here tomorrow on Balance of Power on Bloomberg TV and radio.